Minimum age of criminal capacity for children has been raised to 12. Previously, children up to the age of 10 could not be arrested or charged for criminal offence and instead would be referred to the Department of Social Development or the Children's Courts. Amendments to the regulation of the Child Justice Act have now seen this age increased by 2 years in line with United Nations standards. To tell us more about this and other changes to the Act, I'm joined by Deputy Minister for Justice John Jeffery, who joins us virtually from Pretoria. Thank you so much for your time this evening. I'm assuming that this would have been a piece of legal work that had taken your department some time to get it to this point of fruition.
Yeah, this was an amendment to the Child Justice Act, which was passed some time ago. But in order for it to come into effect, there had to be regulations, and the President brought the sections of the Act into effect on the 15th of August. So that was last Monday.
Unfortunately, we live in a society where the issue with regards to crime is so broad and complex that we do see younger and younger children finding themselves in the grips of issues of crime. How much of an impact will a change like this have on the justice system and just the day-to-day running of it?
Look, not too much. We did monitoring of how many children. I mean, let me just say that the age of criminal capacity has moved up steadily. It used to be 7, so a 7-year-old could be in court and prosecuted for a crime. It got moved up with the Child Justice Act in 2010 or so, 2012, to 10. And then it's just been moved up to 12. 14 is the international norm. The issue is really about whether the child, at what stage do they have the capacity, the mental capacity to understand the crime that they have committed. What it is basically up until 14, the state has to still prove criminal capacity. After 14, it's assumed that the child then has criminal capacity. But it is a complicated issue. Some countries have their age of criminal capacity a lot higher. Children can do naughty things, can commit crimes. But the issue is, do they really understand what they're doing? And should they be prosecuted for that?
As an example, I think immediately of stories that we've heard for many years in areas like the Cape Flats, for instance, in Cape Town, where a gang warfare is unfortunately, the part of daily life for so many communities, and the increasingly growing problem is at how young an age these gangs are able to get their hooks into young people. It starts with them doing menial jobs, and then that just increases from there. What would this change to the Justice Act mean to the work being done, for instance, by the social workers, who will now have to step in for kids that are picked up for being involved in criminal acts of some kind, now up to the ages of 12? Because one would imagine that this is where they step in to work with those children and would not be part of the mainstream section of the Justice Department or the justice process.
They would have already been involved, they would have already been involved, because as part of the Child Justice Act, there have to be reports from probation officers, who are usually social workers, as to the condition of the child, that have to be considered as to what happens to the child, whether they get bail, whether they can be remanded in their parents' custody, those kinds of things. So social workers were already involved. This will just mean that now they're going to be involved on their own without the criminal justice system. And basically, they'd again, if a child has committed a crime or is involved in committing crimes, they'd have to do an investigation into the circumstances of that child, what's the family situation like, and then if necessary, get a children's court order saying that child must be removed from the parents' custody, or where he or she is staying, and sent somewhere else.
How heavy is the workload at the moment of your social workers, who obviously work hand in hand within your department, when working with age groups, let's say now, seeing as we're focusing on it, ages 10 through to 14?
Yeah, well, look, this would be, well, they would be in the Child Justice Act. They would be needed for child accused, and a child is a person under the age of 18. So even a 17-year-old, they would be expected to be involved. As I can't, social workers don't fall under justice, but as far as I know, there are problems with the capacity of social development to attend to the issues. I can't really say talk about issues when the children don't get into the criminal justice system, but hopefully they would have the capacity as well. But the one thing we did look quite carefully at was how many children ages 10 and 11 are actually being charged, and the numbers were quite few.
Okay, and that certainly is encouraging. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, Deputy Minister for Justice John Jeffery, joining us from Pretoria there this evening.